Welcome back, everyone. 19 panels down. My maths makes it 26 to go. So we're not even halfway. We've got still so much content to offer you here as part of WFS Live. If you've enjoyed it, and I think there's been a couple of panels today that have been absolutely stellar, by the way, and people have been chatting about it on social media, and rightly so. And we'd like you to continue to do so. If you want to tag us in as well, then feel free at WF Summit on Twitter, at World Football Summit on Instagram, hashtag WFS Live, obviously the hashtag to use. People search under it and they find out what's going on. That's the name of the game. The name of this next panel is how football clubs secure partnerships outside their local geographies. Yes, of course, you might focus on your local geography. It would be the most natural place to start if you're a football club. But this world is vast, isn't it? And it's got immense possibilities. And yet it's increasingly intricately connected. Even with the impact of COVID-19, the most visionary of football businesses are finding new ways to generate revenue, grow their brand, grow their fan base in other parts of the world. Bayern Munich, for example, because of the coronavirus, they had a new take on the pre-season tour, and so they delivered it on social digital networks instead. So, think about things like, virtual Q&A sessions or digital meet and greets, those sorts of things. Now, look, there's no substitute for local knowledge and boots on the ground. We know that. So many clubs still eager to open offices in those foreign countries to get that foothold and trying to ramp up their efforts to target new markets. Not just the domain of the big clubs, not just the Bayerns, the Barças and the Madrids. I mean, I follow Spanish football quite closely. Some of you will know. What about little Eibar, who are trying to target the Japanese market with their players, Takashi Inui and Yoshinori Muto? Look at Alaves, who combine basketball, esports, and their football team in a kind of house of sport. It's their own unique offering. It's how they're trying to stand out and attract new audiences. And in fact, and I'm not breaking any news ahead of time, there's no embargo that I'm ruining here, Celta Vigo are one of the winners in the WFS Industry Awards for Best Internationalization Strategy. So clearly La Liga are doing well with their playbook, and it's being adopted by some of their own members and clubs, and it's filtering down. So let's drill down, shall we, get some proper detail on this in a session entitled How Football Clubs Secure Partnerships Outside Their Local Geographies. And these are our esteemed experts on the subject. Let me introduce them to you. Chief Partnerships Officer at PSG, Marc Armstrong. The CEO at Real Valladolid, Matthieu Fenaert. President of Legends International, Andrew Hampel. And Chief Revenue Officer at AC Milan, Casper Stylsvig. And to chair the chat, a man we know well who's been at the WS events before on this platform, and we're glad to have him back, Chad Biagini, who is President of Nolan Partners. Great to have you with us once again. Looking forward to the discussion, Chad.
Thank you, David, and thanks for having me back. I rarely get second invites to places, so this is an honor. Great to be with all of you today. Matthieu, Marc, Andrew, Casper, thanks for joining us for what I know will be a very engaging discussion. We can't go 45 minutes without saying the word COVID. It's against the rules in 2020. So why don't we begin there? It goes without saying, this year has been unlike anything we've ever experienced in our business lives. How has COVID changed how you sell partnerships? And anyone take that?
I can start if you want, actually. Okay. I mean, nice to meet you. I feel a bit the David against Goliath here, right? Real Valladolid versus PSG, Milan. We don't compete yet in the same league. So for us to be really honest, I guess for everybody, there's a lot of economic pressure on sponsors, a lot of uncertainty about the future. So it makes basically the sale harder to do, right? But for us, the main focus is actually to secure the current partnership we have instead of thinking of new ones, because our local partners are struggling. Our main sponsor, Estrella Galicia, which is one of the biggest beer company, is part of a sector which is very affected in Spain, as you can imagine, since the restaurant and the hotels and the bars are mostly closed because of COVID. Partly due to that, they actually broke the sponsorship contract that they had in Brazil with Corinthians. So this obviously is a red flag for us, and at the same time, because of COVID, we have no public in our stadium. So we are not able to deliver all the assets that are entitled to through the sponsorship contract they have. So we need to be closer to our partner more than ever, understand the strategy, the pain point, the moment they are going through, and be very creative to offer new assets, compensate some assets that we are not able to deliver, and really forget all the strategy that maybe we had planned a couple of months ago, and go from there. So then obviously some industries actually growing during the pandemic, e-commerce, healthcare, logistics, streaming, and these guys are the one who will be targeting more than maybe a couple of months ago. But for us, before later, our colleagues were more aggressive on the sale aspect. Our main our main priority at this point is not to lose any of the sponsors that we currently have, which is crucial for us, for all our P&L, for everything.
Thanks, Matthieu. Marc, you were starting to answer as well. Over to you.
Yeah, for all of us, doesn't matter how big the club is or how big the rights holder is. I think selling during the first lockdown period was difficult. I spent a lot of time, as we probably all did, speaking to friends and contacts in the industry at other rights holders, and it just didn't feel appropriate to do a lot of hard selling in that period. So completely the same as Matthieu. I think the focus primarily during that first lockdown period was preserving what we had. So, unlike other major leagues, we didn't even complete our league season. So we had a very big challenge in terms of lost inventory. So real huge amount of effort and time spent on, being creative and flexible with our current partners, trying to find new ways for them to activate during the period where the players weren't around, and trying to find ways to do innovative content with the players. So it really did feel like a 3 or 4 month period of really protecting the base of what you had. And luckily for us, we have a great group of partners, and we've been very successful to that end. I think now with the second sort of period of lockdown, whatever you call it, it feels a bit different. It feels more like it's business as usual. Brands are still planning for the future. So I think a bit more hard selling, or a bit more kind of, I think in the first period, it was okay to close deals that you'd already started the conversations on. But now it feels like it's more appropriate to be pitching to new brands. And as Matthieu said, there were some during the first period that were doing well. Some industries were doing well, but many were not. So I think now we're just feeling our way into how we sell. So it's not always appropriate to do a long deck or even a video in a Zoom or a Teams call. Do we send documents in advance? Do we send short videos? Do we kind of change that way we're selling? And I think we're all kind of feeling ourselves into that a little bit still. And how we change that approach of selling, because the traditional approach that you would do face to face isn't really working. And I think we're all probably the same in this industry of, apart from flying to Lisbon for the Champions League final, I haven't stepped on a plane for 9 months, which is incredible. And I think we all kind of travel far too much usually. So we're having to really kind of feel our way into how we sell in this new world, and certainly until things get back to normal.
Marc, are changes like that short term, or do you see that changing how you sell going forward into post COVID and post a vaccine?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think for me, you can't replace the face-to-face contact of meeting people, building that rapport and that relationship, and trying to do deals with them. But probably, if we're all honest, we may travel less in the future than we did in the short to medium term, because there's still some overhanging concerns. But maybe longer term, we don't always need to jump on that plane and go and see the people, and it probably forces all of us to be a bit more creative and innovative. But hopefully in time we will get back to that face-to-face contact, because it's very important.
So today's topic is about considering international expansion and looking outside your local market when it comes to partnerships. We see from our seat many clubs looking outside their own geographies, opening offices in new geographies. We recently helped teams open offices in the US and in Asia as examples. It's a big world out there. How do you even begin to focus your international prospecting efforts? Casper, I'll put you on the spot to start, and then Andrew will go to you.
Okay, thank you. No, I think the key thing here is focus and prioritize the markets. As you say, it's a huge world out there. So I think you need to have a very intelligent-led approach to the markets. You need to understand where are your fans, which markets can deliver commercially, but also which markets deliver an audience. and then overlay that with sort of commercial opportunities, because there also have to be a local economy. I mean, we have an office in Shanghai, so obviously China is a key market probably for the most clubs, given the size and scale of it and the opportunities. But a market like China is a long term. You definitely have to be there for long term, and you have to have a very clear strategy how you do it. And also certain payments has to remain in the country, so you need to reinvest that in the local economy. And other markets, sort of Brazil, we have a legacy there from our previous players with Kaká, Ronaldinho, and Dida. It's also a huge opportunity. And then obviously there are a number of other markets which we see with the current players we have in the roster. There is a huge movement, especially around Middle East, but also around US. So I think the takeaway from, at least from our end, is be very, very strategic how you do it, and not try. Even a club of our size, we can't conquer the whole world at once, but be very specific in which markets you go, and then do a good job market by market.
Andrew, I'll go to you.
Perfect.
You represent football clubs and NFL teams and NBA teams all around the world when it comes to their global sales. What can you share on that same topic?
I really pretty much endorse what Casper was saying, that the world is a huge place. So what you need to do is approach it very strategically and very intelligently. It tends to be, from our perspective, not just simply a question of breaking down the world into which are the markets in which our brand appeals, or where we have historically had strong links. That's obviously an important starting point. There's a number of other criteria that are going to make it. They're going to shape your search, if that's a better way to put it. So clearly, deep business intelligence, understanding not just which sectors are likely to find the opportunity attractive, understanding which sectors or which brands are going to find the markets which you can hit as an asset. You're going to find those attractive for different reasons. Is it because there is a burgeoning industry opportunity within a certain market? There are particular social issues they want to address in a particular market. Try to understand the way the brands are going to be thinking. So business intelligence leads on this from our perspective. And then from there is having a very, very effective process-driven approach to the market, which doesn't require you to saturate the world with executives in every key market. What it requires you to have are truly top-level executives in the sales environment, the business intelligence environment, the creative environment, and the ability to network. And the ability to network to very, very targeted groups of companies in different sectors. So it's trying to get that balance between we need resources in the marketplace and understanding that actually that doesn't mean resources in every market. It means that you need to have resources and have access to all of the key markets that you want to attack.
Thank you. Matthieu, you were starting to share.
No, sorry. I was actually just agreeing with Casper. You need to find a point of connection. You need to select, which is a bit redundant because my colleagues mentioned that before. But in our case, obviously, we've got a very powerful ambassador that happens to be the owner of the club. Ronaldo is a global personality, and he's got a strong fan base in some countries, as Brazil, his home country, Mexico, China. So for us, it also helps a bit when we're doing this strategic exercise of selecting which country should be our next target.
Marc, Paris Saint-Germain has had a lot of success finding partners around the world. How do you look at other markets when it comes to prioritizing your time, your resources, your team's efforts?
Yeah, I think similar to what Casper said, it's two things. One is to be focused on the priority. So I love the expression that our friends at Nike used to use of "don't try to boil the ocean." So don't try and cover everything. And I think partly because of that, and partly because of COVID, we've really focused on, for example, APAC, and maybe deprioritized North America for now. We've targeted markets like Latin America. We have a long heritage of Brazilian players, similar to Milan. We've had over 30 Brazilian players. We have a strong link with Africa, and we have some exciting plans there. But APAC has been the focus. Excuse me. But I think, to be honest with us, because unlike other top clubs, we may be a younger club. We're only 50 years old this year, and we've come a long way in a short space of time. So I think rather than targeting particular regions, for us, it's been more about taking a program that was predominantly about the domestic market, and most of the partners were French and focused on the French market, and really growing it to a global program. So of the 19 new deals we've done in the last 2 years, only 2 of them are for France only. We've really made it a lot more global and found brands that will truly activate around the world. So our biggest difference has not just been about regional partnerships, but going truly global from being quite a French-focused property.
Thank you. Andrew, question for you. At what point should a club look to a third party such as Legends versus trying to do it all themselves?
That's what I try and persuade people to do every day, isn't it? I guess. I think the essence of that is to recognise that we're not trying to replace existing resource within a club or within a rights holder. What we look to do is to be additive to that. So we're looking to bring specialist skills or resources to bear where those resources don't already exist within a club. And of course, that there's a particular environment we're in at the moment where people are, to an extent, financially constrained. People have had to lay off resources. They're looking to outsource more of what they do. But that's not the be all and end all, not even the primary motivator. Primary motivator is that we feel, for example, it's just one example, we have very, very clear specialist knowledge and experience in the field of stadium sponsorship. So sponsorships associated with new buildings, with arenas, that is not something necessarily that the executives in this space will come across as part of their day job. You don't open a new stadium. It's unlikely that you as an executive will open a new stadium if you work club side or rights holder side more than once or even twice in your life. Lucky if you do it twice. Whereas we at Legends are doing that, 4 or 5 venues a year are coming through our books. So the ability to understand the way a stadium works from a sponsor perspective, how best to engage with the supply chain, how to drive optimal value from that facility from a partnerships perspective. That would be just one of an area which I think it's fair to say most clubs, not all clubs, but most clubs or right holders would not have immediate cutting edge experience or expertise in that area. So that would be one example, going back to the generic question of, we just look to be additive. We look to say to people, let us come and help you to be better in areas where you don't have existing expertise.
Thanks for letting me put you on the spot. We have a question from the audience from Guillaume. Guillaume asked what all of you think about the groups that are coming into this space. So City Football Group, Madison Square Garden, we're seeing Red Ball and Liberties put funds together. Do you think you'll see a rise in ownership portfolios that encompass multiple clubs, or at some point do you see that slowing down? Casper, I'll ask you.
Yeah, I think first of all you see a shift, especially in the Italian football. We're obviously selling now part of the league to investment funds, and that will have, I think, an effect in terms of how Italian football is being sort of perceived. You see much more investments coming in. You see a change of ownership in a couple of clubs to Americans this summer, and that will have an impact. Which it's going to be groups with certain clubs around the world. I think that's a discussion which has been going on for the last 10 years. What is the right thing to do? And utilize where immigration opportunities are different from country to country. I think there'll be a heavy emphasis on finding young talent. Young talent is very, very expensive for the top. Paying more than 100 million euros for a 20-year-old is not unheard of. And I think that sort of forces the club to think a bit more creative and maybe go into other markets. I also think with new technologies, it's easier to track talent in those markets, so that will have an impact as well. But I do think investing as City Football Group do, there's only a few clubs who will go down that route. Other clubs have tried it in the past less successfully, because it does require complete commitment to do so. Otherwise, it won't work.
Thanks, Casper. Matthieu, I'm going to ask you a question that came from the audience. So Uriona asked, how do you retain international sponsors during a difficult time? You talked earlier about spending a lot of your time focusing on protecting your current partners. Any advice you can share, or any success stories?
I would say at this moment we have local and national sponsors more than international sponsors, which is something that we can even discuss a little further. But I guess independently of where your partner is coming from, it must be a partner, right? Not a sponsor, not someone who is just looking for pure awareness. This was the sponsorship model of the 90s, right? You really need to do a deep dive in their company. It's just not a check from whatever company. You need to understand them to feel what are their pain points at the moment and be very close to them. We feel bad. Actually, we signed a contract. We feel really bad not to be able to deliver all the assets they could use, and they had some campaign planned for hospitality, for ticketing, and now the promotion for Christmas, delivering tickets, all that. Now it's not possible. So they had invested time and money in something that we are not able to deliver. So to me, is to be transparent, honest. Everybody understand that it's nobody's fault. It's the situation that we need to face, and you need to dedicate time. And you need to show the sponsor that you care, that they're just not one brand company in a list of a huge sponsor roster, and you don't even know their business model, the name of their CEO, the name of the CMO. For us, it's I would say proximity. So to resume all I just said, being closer than ever, and showing that you care.
Thank you. Selling partnerships is a competitive business. You might pitch against several clubs when securing a sponsorship with an FMCG or a financial services partner. How do all of you look at differentiating your own brands? Marc, I'm going to come to you first, but I'll go around the room on this one.
Yeah, I think, look, we have our ownership has very ambitious sporting objectives for the club. To meet those objectives, clearly we need to drive a lot of revenue. But I think we came from the point of saying to achieve those revenue objectives, we had to create a point of difference versus the other top clubs. So we've put a huge amount of time and effort into creating almost a sporting and a lifestyle brand. Many of you watching will have seen our partnership with the Jordan brand under our Nike relationship, which has been a huge game changer for us, but many collaborations like that. So, clearly the sporting objectives are the number one thing. Nothing made us happier than getting to the Champions League final last year. But if you go back a season where we had an earlier exit than we would have hoped, we still had very strong results, largely because of the things we were doing off the pitch as well. So it's about kind of creating that point of difference with some of the cool things we do, focusing on the city of Paris. We sell the city as much as the club. We're in a pretty unique position that, we're the only major club in the city, which is quite unique among iconic world cities. So really working hard to create that real point of difference and that real kind of lifestyle approach, but not forgetting, as I said, that the sporting side is the most important. And if you can marry both together, then it's the magic formula. So I think that's where we've had a lot of success. And many people look to the Jordan collaboration as the best example of that.
Casper, you next.
So I think first and foremost, it's about focusing at AC Milan, sort of focus on ourselves, and it's about delivering for the client. It's about storytelling, and obviously these times are different, but we have a unique past, very successful past, and then also focusing on what project you're sort of selling for the future. We have highly likely a new stadium coming up, which is absolutely unique to be able to sell a whole stadium, but also the fact that we are a little bit similar to Paris in a unique setting, very fashion-oriented city, very design-oriented city. So if we can merge the past, the future with these trends there is right now, then we have a very strong story to tell, which is really unique in the industry. But also position the brand in the premium space and making sure that we tailor every single approach individually to the brand and understanding the brand, what do the brand wants. And I think that sort of make it absolutely unique. But obviously it is very competitive, as you said. So everything about being different.
Matthieu.
Also, I guess you need to know yourself properly, right? If you look from the outside, yes, we're part of a global industry. The league, La Liga, is the second most watched football league in the world. We've got a lot of history, more than 90 years, and strong values. But is that enough to differentiate ourselves from other clubs? You know, other clubs even from Spain for our market or from abroad could put the same argument in front of the table. So basically, because we are, even if we are 90 years old, as far as the new ownership is concerned, we're in a pretty young project yet. So what we decided to do is to hire a top-notch brand agency to understand better who we are, not from our perspective, it doesn't matter, but from the audience perspective, right? So doing survey among fan base and among the first we did at local level, then national level, to finally define what are exactly the key points that differentiate ourselves, Real Valladolid, from other clubs, and this is how we will use these elements during our brand strategy to sell ourselves in the local and abroad. So for me, it's start with the knowledge of your own differentiation.
Andrew, I'll turn the question a little bit for you, since you don't represent only a single club. You get to represent many clubs. What advice would you have for clubs out there in differentiating their own stories as they're out in the market pursuing partnerships?
I mean, it's again complex. I think each of the other guys on the panel have highlighted key elements to it. You know, the ambitions for success that Marc was talking to, the unique attributes of your home market, to which Casper was talking, particularly saying about this is partnership, not sponsorships nowadays. I think that change of vernacular is important, is recognizing that you're entering into a partnership with someone who's contributing significant finance to the relationship. And what we're seeing a lot of, and what we think is really, really important, is that to engage in a really sophisticated way with potential partners. You need to understand their business. You need to bring experts in on your side of the table to drive the conversation. I'll give you one from our perspective, huge example, but it's just one example of many I'm sure that are out there. For SoFi Stadium, which is a big new development that we've been involved in with the Kroenke Group for the Rams and the Chargers in Los Angeles, we've just concluded a multifaceted relationship with Google and YouTube that took, years to negotiate. that is, yes, it is a sponsorship deal. But it's really not. It's a very, very sophisticated, entrenched partnership across all of the technology and data solutions within a 296-acre campus. There are some headline pieces to it that you'd recognize as being, oh, that's a naming rights deal. You know, the fact that YouTube have named the entertainment arena within the development. But it's all of the other pieces of that jigsaw puzzle, which are, again, going to drive the consumer experience, going to drive the SoFi and the Chargers and the Rams engagement with their fans when they are there, when they are not there. All of those ingredients make it an incredibly complex deal. So it's been a long time in the negotiation, but it's going to be a long time in the execution as well. So it is, I think, persuading potential partners that you get them, that you understand their ambition, and that you will work with them and bring expertise to the table to help them to achieve the ambitions that they set out at the outset.
The partnerships business is changing and changing quite a bit, as you've brought up. Brands aren't looking for just the same, right? Not only sign-ins, not only physical entitlements. How do you and your teams go about creating new, relevant, and compelling inventory of today and tomorrow? And can you give us any good examples on this topic? Marc, I'm going to come to you first, and then I'll go to Casper after that.
Yeah, so I think, look, we had a lot of success with, some of the traditional areas, so our Nike deal, our shirt deal with our core, and then partly because we were left with not a lot of inventory and traditional inventory, and partly because we want to be cutting edge and innovative, we've had to be really creative and try and find kind of new areas to partner in. We have and Casper said this earlier, the importance of the kind of business intelligence side. We have a fantastic business intelligence team here, really digging out these new opportunities. So we're very proud of the fact that, we were the first to partner with Socios in that whole fan token space. And I know you had Alex from Socios on a panel a couple of hours ago, and, being the first in that space, being the first to do a really big, all-encompassing partnership in the mobile gaming space. So I think our partnership with Supercell is one we're very proud of. Very non-traditional. They're not on the LED. They don't have many tickets. They're based in San Francisco and in Finland. They send some people to games, but really it was about accessing our superstar players, putting them together with influencers from their key markets all over the world, and creating some really powerful content. So we're very proud of some of these partnerships where they're very non-traditional, and we've managed to find really successful partnerships, even when we've got limited sort of traditional inventory left. So it's all about that creativity and flexibility and having the right intelligence teams to really find these opportunities, especially be the first in some of these categories.
That's a great example. Thank you. Casper, what can you share on the same question?
Yeah, adding to that, I completely share what Marc is saying there. It's about being creative. We had our second virtual concert in a partnership we have with Rock Nation. We had it on Friday. The first concert we had back in May during the first lockdown, there was a charity element to it, and we had amazing talent performing. So the way we see creativity is also merging other industries. So we go into entertainment, we go into music, and making sure that we're reaching out to the fans, especially during a difficult time as we are going through now. So I think as people are consuming sports differently, you also need to change your sort of your narrative. And we have seen a lot of interest from partners to be a part of the music side of it as well. You see a lot of big brands are sponsoring both music and sport, and having that bridge where you as a club can deliver a virtual concert is just absolutely unique. And the event we had on Friday was sort of next gen, so focusing very much on upcoming stars, which is very much in line with what we're standing for and where we're trying to turn the club around. We have the youngest team in Europe, and really focusing on young talent, focusing on our academy. So I think that's something really unique. And then the last point just to mention on that is it's a truly global event. Given that it's virtual, you can reach every corner of the world. So you have really an opportunity to scale it and reach your fan base. So I think that's at least an example where I would say that where our focus would be going forward.
Andrew, can I put you on the spot? Because you get a great purview, ringside seats to the entire industry with who your client portfolio is. Any examples you can share?
A slightly left field one, perhaps, which had an interesting knock-on effect. We got into a discussion with the entity that hosts the Los Angeles Auto Show, of all things, about them potentially bringing the Auto Show to SoFi Stadium. And whilst that was driven by initially just the desire to drive content, what it's actually done is it's opened up actually multiple conversations in brand sectors that we hadn't engaged with at all, simply because we brought something other than sport and music to the venue. And it just for whatever reason has brought the attraction or the reach to a bunch of other brands that we hadn't engaged with previously. Necessarily at the multi-million-dollar level, but at a lower level than that, some pretty serious interest got driven by that.
We have a poll in the chat right now. Yes, go ahead, please.
No, sorry, just adding on that topic. I guess everybody mentioned the fact that we need to be creative, and that's a no-brainer. But I guess also a very important point is telling true story. There's a couple of bad examples in the past where some sponsors try to tell a story that was not really genuine. I can think about automotive deals with clubs who were giving one car to every player, but we all know that this player were not using the car, so it actually backfired against the entire story. It was not a good image for the sponsor. It was a tough relationship to force the players to go with not his real car to the training center. So I guess all need to be really genuine. The brands understand that, and the fans are not fooled. You need to tell the truth.
Thank you. There's a poll in the chat right now talking about foreign investment coming into football, and in some cases, fans can be nervous about foreign investment, wondering if that investment understands the local culture, the local fan base, history, heritage. And we've certainly seen examples of foreign investment going wrong. In all of your cases, foreign investment has gone exceptionally well for the time that your owners have been there. What advice would you have for investors looking at purchasing a club abroad about how they can become relevant, local, and have empathy for the history and heritage of these great clubs? Casper, can I ask you first?
I think it's accepting the culture and not wanting to change everything overnight. In investment, football is such ingrained in key markets, in how much it means for the local community, and you have to accept that. It has to be a long-term game, and then also make sure you make investments. So I think, and then communicate.
Matthieu, same topic.
No, it's perfect when Casper just said, obviously when you acquire a new club, you've got a lot of new idea, and you believe that the former owner didn't do the best way, and you want to do it differently. That's for sure in terms of business processes and internal staff, whatever. But you need to respect the history of the club. In our case, we've got more than 90 years. There's some clear value. There's a way to communicate with the fans, and we need to respect that. We cannot believe that. We all remember a story of in the Premier League where I won't tell the name of the club. The official logo for years was blue, and suddenly a new owner put it red because for him it was symbolic in his own country. obviously you will create a revolution with your fans. It's a lack of respect. So basic principle, respect.
Thank you. We have 20 seconds left, so I'll have a quick hitter for anybody who wants to take it. I'll throw it to Andrew first, though. What advice do you have for clubs right now that might be considering protecting assets versus spending time on investing in growth? 10 seconds.
Well, hopefully protected the assets now and you can look beyond the horizon. I think we all know where the horizon might be, so hopefully we can lift our eyes up and look for the longer term now.
All Marc, Matthieu, Casper, Andrew, thanks so much. What an enjoyable conversation, and I'll welcome David back as being cognizant of the time.
Very kind of you. Thank you. Fantastic discussion. Again, I've made copious notes, but just to very quickly up some, we started off with the impact of COVID and how it affected a club like, for example, PSG, and having to be creative and flexible with their partners, producing innovative content with the players in the absence of football and fans at stadiums. How do we deal with this now? Well, of course, Casper talking about being strategic. Andrew saying about business intelligence leading. Everyone really chimed in with that. And Matthieu saying basically trying to find the difference between sponsorship and partnership, and it's something that obviously we came back to later with Andrew as well. Talking about different regions, well, PSG seem to have a bit of a global brief, talking about where they're activating and finding the brands and partners with whom to do so as well. But again, just having the smart approach, not trying to boil the ocean, as Marc said. We talked a little bit about private investment in football. We know what's going on in Serie A with CVC Capital Partners and the 10% stake that they've agreed to sell to CVC, and also we discussed a little bit further on just other innovative points, music and sport being an interesting axis for Casper in particular. Also, Marc saying you're selling your city as your club and trying to find those USPs. I mean, we've known about USPs for some time. It's nothing new, but trying to find those points of differentiation. And advice for prospective foreign owners of European clubs to finish off with, which is in fact one of the things we're going to be talking about in our next session. So you've given me the perfect segue, Chad Biagini. Thank you very much indeed. And thank you also to Marc, Matthieu, Andrew, and Casper as well. So on we go. 6 of 8 down on day 3. So we continue to make good progress. And as I mentioned, and this next panel will be in partnership with Porters Consulting. It's about global investment in football. We've seen it from all parts. We've seen it from Russia. We've seen it from the Gulf states. We've seen it from China and so on and so forth. But now in particular, the West is starting to invest. And we'll be looking into that in a couple of moments' time.